Camera YouTube has long been discussing small everyday carry point and shoot cameras. There's a first for cameras that are small, easy to carry around everywhere you go, easy to use, convenient, and that are something different from your smartphone. But why am I talking to you about cameras while I'm holding this little black box without a lens right here? Cameras have lenses, right? This is not a camera. Well, this is the Revue 35cc, a tiny analog camera shooting 35mm film. It comes with this little flash right here, but the model I have doesn't seem to work anymore, so let's get rid of that. And with the flash detached and the lens retracted into the body of the camera, this camera is absolutely tiny. It fits in the palm of my hand, it fits into pretty much any pocket I have on me right now. I mean, compared to some of the bigger film SLRs I have, or even some of the smaller film cameras I have, this is really tiny. It is 106mm times 65mm times 34mm and 222 grams. And I'm not all too familiar with the list of smallest 35mm cameras ever built, but this has to be like somewhere on there, because once the film is loaded in here, there really just is no more room. But at the very least, it's the smallest 35mm film camera I own. Some more facts on this camera. It has a 35mm f2.8 lens. It will pop out of the camera body when you use the film winder as you would on any other film camera. And if you push the film winder forwards, it retracts into the body. And then you have this little window viewfinder. Look in the one side, look out the other side. We've seen it before. And other than that, there really isn't anything on this camera. We have a little dial right here to set the ISO of the film we've loaded. All of the exposure will be handled by the camera itself. But you guys aren't here to hear me read off some numbers. You want to see me shoot this camera. And well, in the beginning I had the same struggle I did in my last video. Of course, what I could have done is just come out here, do what I usually do, shoot a roll of film on this camera as I'm filming the video, and then talk about how this camera is more limited than my big film SLRs. No way. How interesting and how very fair for this camera. No, I once again had to think about what can this camera do that my other 35mm film cameras can't. And the answer is pretty obvious. It's the smallest 35mm film camera I now own. That means it's gonna be the easiest to bring everywhere I go. And that's what I did. I wanted to try using this camera as an everyday carry camera. Just have it with me wherever I go. In the car, in my backpack, in the pocket of my jacket, wherever. Having a barbecue, take a picture. Pets looking cute, take a picture. Doing some yard work, I think you guys get the deal. Sorry for the bad audio, bad lighting, bad framing, and probably train noises you're hearing right now. Yeah, nah. So on that day I was completely not prepared to record any video. I didn't think I would be recording anything other than that little bit of B-roll you've seen. So I had only my phone, no microphone, no nothing. And I wasn't expecting to recording anything, but then all of a sudden I had a very important realization and I wanted to tell you about it very bad. I even went into like a forest to cut out the noise from the trains and stuff, but I'm editing it right now and let's not. Let me just re-record this here inside my nice and silent room with a microphone. I think you will appreciate it as well. So when I started working on this video, I didn't expect to really be shooting a lot of pictures on this camera. I thought it would probably take me like over a week to even get through the one roll of film I'd loaded. But then on that day, you know, I had a work meeting and I took the camera with me. I just had it sitting on the passenger seat of the car, thinking that maybe on my way home I would have time to pull over and take some pictures for the video. And As it happened, on my way home I drove past an old train station that I had been to before as a kid, and I haven't been there in a while, but when I started doing film photography for a while, I've been thinking that, oh, that might be a nice place to go with a film camera, because it's kind of older and rusty and just kind of a scuffed train station, and I thought with a bit of film grain and all that it would maybe look nice. But I never thought of the location highly enough to actually make the time to like pack my gear and go there and really go shoot. But on that day I thought, well, I may as well just try and see if I can get anything, since I already have the camera with me. And it turned out to be way more enjoyable than I thought. And I don't think the pictures I took that day were the best pictures I've ever taken, especially considering that this camera, with its fully automatic exposure, kind of likes to make the exposures pretty dark, I've realized. I will talk about it more later in the video. But I had a good time, and I made the time to shoot that location, which is something I never did before. But that also resulted in that first roll of film being empty way quicker than I thought. So I wanted to load up a second roll of film. But just because at the time I didn't even know if this camera would work, I got the film developed. I got some cheap prints made just to see if the pictures even turned out good enough to where it would be worth it to load up a second roll of film. And let's go to that unboxing now. And don't worry, this time I remember to bring a microphone. Hey guys, welcome to picture unboxing. Some prints. We have the camera and we have the film that I'm hopefully gonna load into this camera after unboxing the images. Also, sorry if the camera is shaking. You're sitting on the passenger seat. Very immersive, I know, but every time the car shakes, you shake as well. Okay, consider it here. Okay, and it's looking not bad. Good picture, decent. So one thing I was already kind of expecting from my prior experiences with auto exposure film cameras is that probably a good amount of the pictures would be underexposed, and I was kind of correct with that. Oh yeah, look at this. It's pretty dark. I was kind of expecting that just from my prior experience with cameras like the Canon AE1. A problem with this camera is there's no sort of like exposure compensation setting or anything like that. You really have no control other than the ISO. What you could of course do is purposefully lie to the camera about the ISO of your film. So usually you would tell it that it's a lower ISO than it actually is to avoid underexposure. Probably after using this camera for a while, you could probably figure out something like this, that you could maybe use a different ISO to get better exposure, but it's more difficult with this camera. But I'm happy to see that the pictures did turn out well. Some underexposed, some not in focus, of course, but didn't really expect anything else. But even this picture I thought would be super not in focus, because I really didn't know how to focus it, and it's still actually turned out quite okay. Look at them. Actually also very surprised with this one. I really wasn't expecting this to be even anywhere near sharp. It's not the sharpest image I've ever seen, but it's sufficiently sharp. That's nice. Okay, images seem to have function. But well, since I'm making this video about using this camera as an everyday carry camera, I would kind of imply I'm using it for more than like 3 days, which I was. So, second roll of film. You may have noticed these numbers here on front of the screen. I don't know if you can actually see them. I will have B-roll. That looks suspiciously like some sort of focus scale, and that's true. While this camera is fully auto exposure and does all of that itself, what it doesn't have is autofocus. It's a manual focus only camera. Now, I already see people in the comments talking about how that's not actually a point and shoot camera then. It's a point, focus and shoot camera. There's an extra step. I don't know if that's actually like some rule. I think you can have point and shoot cameras that are autofocus, but whatever. But yeah, focusing with this camera is kind of annoying. You have the scale that tells you what kind of distance you focus on, but you have no sort of aperture indicator that would tell you the depth of field of what you're focusing on. Not that I would even know what aperture this camera is choosing, because it's doing it itself and I don't know what it's choosing. Also, of course, because you're not looking through the lens, there's also no way for you to tell if the image is sharp that way. You're just looking through the window. So how do you tell if your image is focused? You guess. That's the actual wording in the manual I have. It says measure or guess the distance. Thanks guys. But there is a life hack, which is this little green marker here. So what this does is, according to the manual, if the lighting is good enough, which I don't know what this camera considers to be sufficiently good lighting, but in that case you can set the focus to the screen marker, and then it's supposed to be fully sharp, so sharp from 1.5 meters to infinity meters, which would mean that at that point it's using its tightest aperture or a very tight aperture to get pretty much everything in focus. So this is why for my next film stock I chose an ISO 400 film. I started off with ISO 200, but just to be safe I want to choose an ISO 400 film next. I love loading film, I'm so good at it. I never destroy rolls of film or roll by loading them not properly. I have to say though, while I'm hearing this shutter sound again, it sounds ass. I don't like it at all. As I was just hearing the shutter sound while loading the camera, that's for sure one other complaint, you know, with my other film cameras you hear this nice mirror slap on the SLRs, they sound great when they take a picture. This one does not have good sound. Just waiting for the wind to calm down. You're standing crooked also, while we're on the topic. Here's the camera I'm making my next video about, and I'm just carrying it around with me right now all the time, shooting pictures with it, and I will soon make a video about my experience using this camera. And if you want to see the picture I just took of you guys, you have to tune in for that video coming up next. I'm in a bit of a rush because the sun's about to go down there behind me. When I catch the last bit of light, I had to drive some family members to an appointment, and now I'm somewhere here in absolutely nowhere. But I didn't just want to drive here and then drive right back. So I looked on Google Maps, found a small little lake, and we're about to have sunset. So I'll just try to use that opportunity to get some quick shots with the camera that I of course brought with me. I'm a bit worried about one thing, me being worried about things, wow. So from my experience using my Canon AE1, which also has an automatic exposure mode, with that automatic exposure mode to shoot sunsets, I can say that for sure it likes to underexpose the land like a lot, because you're shooting right in the sun, which is bright, so it underexposes all the rest. I'm a bit worried that this thing might also do that, so I want to try one thing. I'm going to shoot it normally with the ISO set to 400, but I'm also going to set the ISO to, I think 200 is the next one, and just see if maybe that comes out better. So I'm just going to shoot that right now off the scene. Let me know which one you think is better, and if it even works, if there even is a difference. There's so many birds around here, it's amazing. There's birds back there. Birds right there in the water, which I'm about to try to catch right now with the sunset in the background. Could be a nice shot. Not a bird. So I really wanted to make like a full comparison here, but there's two problems. For one, the film lab somehow managed to cut the pictures in the middle of the pictures, not between the pictures, but in the pictures. So they cut the pictures in half, and I had to somehow stitch them back together when scanning them. So these scans and these pictures are already quite scuffed. And also the difference is just so small to the point where I don't even know if it worked, or if this camera maybe doesn't even let you change the film speed while the film is loaded. I think it worked, but there's one picture where you can kind of see the difference, but it's so small. I would have probably needed to set the ISO to 100 to even see really any difference. As I already kind of said, the exposures on this camera are really quite a lot darker than what I would usually shoot with a fully manual exposure camera. And I kind of knew that that would happen from experience using my Canon AE1, which also has automatic exposure. I knew that sometimes it can just happen that the sky is properly exposed, but then the earth is just too dark. That's something that can happen pretty commonly. But On this camera, some of the pictures, even the sky is underexposed, so I don't know what this camera even exposed for. So for the next roll of film I will shoot on this camera, I will for sure make sure to have the camera set to a lower ISO at all times. Now what I don't know is if that's how this camera looked straight out of the factory, or once again, this is a gift from my grand uncle. It was released in 1981 from what I could find, so again, it's possible that just because of the age the exposures are lower, but I don't know. But for the next roll of film I will load this camera, I will for sure make sure to expose it for lower ISO, to make sure to overexpose all of the film, because it's getting dark. Okay, no idea how many pictures I just took, but I did take most of them double. Sadly the birds left the water right as I arrived, which is kind of sad. I would have loved to have the birds in the water as the sun is setting, but they're all on land now. But I think there's some decent shots in there. While I'm walking back to the car, you know, it's kind of cool that if I didn't bring a dedicated camera today, I just don't think I would have shot anything today. I would have just driven home. It was way too big of a hassle to, you know, try to find a parking spot and all of that. Would not have went through all of that effort just for 4 pictures of a sunset in the middle of some city. Although, let's see, maybe the pictures are not nice, but I just would not have done that. I get that I said I won't compare this camera to my other 35mm film cameras, but just so you aren't surprised when you tune into my next film photography video and find out that this has not become my favorite film camera, let's just talk about it real quick. So, number one, the viewfinder on this camera, way worse than it is on all of my other cameras really, which that's really one of the biggest reasons why I will choose a film camera over my Sony CV10 for a shoot, because of course this doesn't have any viewfinder at all, and especially for days like today when you're shooting outside in bright sunlight, just having the screen, which there's just going to be reflections, you're not going to see anything, it gets annoying. So choosing a film camera with a nice bright optical viewfinder, you see everything, it's way better. That's one of the biggest reasons why I will often choose a film camera for a day like today. With this one though, it's so small, really all of those benefits are kind of gone. I mean, you can kind of see, but you have to smush your face up against it. It's all like distorted, you can't really actually tell what the image is gonna look like. It's just less fun than any other film camera I've shown you on this channel so far, so I want to point it out. Number 2 is of course creative control. Now you may say that you think that this camera doing all of the exposure settings by itself is a good thing, and it might be for you. But again, for me, a part of the fun of doing film photography is being able to figure out what aperture do I want to use for the shot and what shutter speed do I want to use, and kind of finding the right balance, making those creative choices myself, which of course not only do I not do that with this camera, I also don't know what it shows. There's a little warning light back here which will tell me if the image is too dark, and other than that I don't really know what this camera is doing. Maybe that's a skill issue, maybe there's a way to figure it out kind of. But yeah, well, not only do I not have the control, there also isn't like an indicator on here that will tell me which settings the camera is using. So I just really don't know what type of creative shot I just took. And I mean, I've purposefully been trying to get the tightest possible aperture and the fastest possible shutter speed with the ISO 400 trick all the time. So not really a lot of creativity in that is there. I've not changed, and I've not even changed the focus. I just pull the camera out, press and shoot, which can be nice, but in terms of, you know, creative stuff, it's not comparable at all to what other film cameras in my collection will be able to do. And lastly, the ISO dial. I've not seen the pictures yet I've taken with changing the ISO while I'm shooting. I hope that it worked out, because those pictures might actually be pretty nice. But even if it did, changing the ISO setting here is so annoying. The dial is right in there, you can barely reach it. You have to kind of try to get a grip on it with your fingernail and then pull it. It's so hard to turn. So even if it worked, it's not a fun experience to try to change this. So yeah, and some sort of actual dial on top of here or something like that would be nice, but then the camera would be bigger, so I guess that's not going to be a thing. So my lectures for today are done. I have about an hour until my next appointment. Should be using the time to eat, but you guys already know where our priorities are, my English skills aren't quite done yet. Don't mind the fancy ass fit, by the way. Had to do a little presentation, but we have nice sun today, so should be getting many sharp pictures today. Oh, look at this tree. I mean, if I was a serious camera YouTuber, I would be talking about how this camera is ideal for street photography, which is kind of like the most, I guess, viral genre. I feel like it's easy to hide away. It's fairly unassuming, at least as long as you don't have the lens visible. I think with the lens, it kind of grabs people's attention for sure, because it looks just different than any other camera for sure. But like this, nobody would mind, and it's also extremely quiet shooting because the lack of shutter sound. The only thing that really makes the sound is getting the lens in and out of the body of the camera. There's some sort of spring in there that makes a noise when you do that. Other than that, it's so quiet. But yeah, I was just heading out here to this park, a little lake, and I passed by a big ass university campus, thousands of people walking around, many buildings and people and stuff. And all I shot was the ducks out front of the building, and then I went on to the lake and to find some more birds, which, I mean, with its 35mm lens, this isn't a good camera for photographing birds, but it's just kind of what I'm looking for, just in case it sort of tells you anything about my stance on street photography and my interest in the genre. Not something you're gonna see here an awful lot, but I guess a camera could be good for that. Although, really, once you get the lens out of there, it will grab people's attention so much, which is kind of the reason why I'm using it. I'm not looking for a camera that hides away. I'm looking for a camera that's interesting, right? It's gonna interest people. But yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, if you told me even a year ago that on a random Tuesday after university, I'm gonna go on the biggest walk around some park and looking at birds, I would have laughed at you not doing that shit. But I guess once you're doing this and you're bringing a dedicated camera with you and you start actively looking for opportunities to take nice pictures, it's gonna have you doing things like this, which I guess is the fun thing. So I mean, in terms of being easy to use, it totally is. I mean, this camera really is very easy to use. Just pull it out, look through the viewfinder, wind the film, press a shutter, put it back away. Very quick, very easy. But that's not necessarily what I'm looking for with film photography. When I'm doing film photography, I'm usually looking for a bit of a more manual and slower process, I guess. And on top of that, we shouldn't forget that there is also small digital cameras that have auto exposure, autofocus, and that are even more convenient to use because you don't have to pay and wait for the film to be developed, or develop it yourself, get it scanned, scan it yourself, whatever. You don't have to do any of that. And you don't have to pay for the film. Small little history lesson on my everyday carry camera situation. So after I made a video about these little digicams right here, there's been a period of time when I did use those as everyday carry cameras. I always had one in my backpack when I went to work or university, and always had one of those with me in case there was any pictures to be gotten. Got some great pictures with those as well. Then at some point I bought the Google Pixel 8 Pro, which now gives me access to high resolution RAW files, which none of my little digicams can shoot RAW. And with that additional flexibility, this has really been my everyday carry camera for the past months. And I don't want to bash smartphone cameras in this video. Large parts of this video were shot on this smartphone because it would be pretty counterproductive if I made a video talking about, look how tiny this camera is, I can bring it anywhere, and then I bring my entire video camera with a tripod and all of that. Would be pretty counterproductive. So of course I shot large parts of this video on this smartphone, which I have with me anyways, and I love smartphone cameras, they're great. But then why would you maybe want to consider a camera like this to replace your smartphone as an everyday carry camera? So I have noticed an important benefit while making this video, which comes down to there's other things you can do with your smartphone. So if we take the example of the time I shot those pictures during my lunch break, well, if I didn't have a dedicated camera with me, what I would have probably done was get something to eat, sit down and scroll through Instagram or my emails or whatever while I eat. But with this camera, there's nothing this camera can do other than be a camera. So it's pretty damn sure what I'm gonna do when I have this camera with me. And that's kind of the benefit I've noticed is with a smartphone, of course, it can be a really great camera to do the exact things I've done with this. The question is, do you do those things with this camera? And with a dedicated camera like this, that is just a camera and nothing else, that's a different thing. It's gonna motivate you to really look for those pictures, and that's another great thing. Many of the places I've been to in this video are places that I could have just gone to. Like I've shot everything in cities I often go to, in places that I've seen before, in places that I drive past often. And for this video I just pulled over the car. Why don't I usually do that? Well, this camera is really just has the fact that I'm really actively looking for photographs in the places that I'm at, which is something that I may not be doing with a phone, because I could use it to take pictures, or I could use it for one of the thousands of other things it can do. And has this camera got me the best possible pictures I can get in these places? Probably not, but it has motivated me to even look for pictures in places that I've been to before but never photographed. It has motivated me to find out that there is great pictures to be had there, and that's a valuable thing. And I may even go back to some of those places with a different camera that I feel like would do a better job at taking those pictures. But having a camera like this can at least motivate you to look, to location scout, I guess. That's really what I've noticed. But at the end of the day, it also comes down to your personal shooting preference. But at the end of the day, how often am I gonna use this camera after I'm done making this video? I don't fully know yet. My plan right now is to just load up another film of Kodak Ultramax in here and then just have it sit around. And on days when I'm going out and I do have the feeling like, oh, today there is gonna be a good opportunity for me to have a bit of time off, be in a location that I feel like there might be something, but I do feel like I maybe need that extra motivation of having just a cool camera, a cool little party trick that's gonna get me to want to grab a camera and to want to really look for those pictures so I can get this lens out of the body, which is really fun. I do feel like I will use it more, but in terms of trying to get the best possible pictures or film pictures that I can get, I don't think this camera is gonna be there. Of course, I do have other cameras there that are a bit more advanced in terms of the control structure, having interchangeable lenses, which I prefer. All of that, obviously. But this camera is most importantly fun to use, and it motivates you to use this camera to do camera stuff. And that's valuable. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. And up here there will be a video I made on digicams, tiny little digital cameras like this one, very comparable to the camera I shot you today, but digital. So if you want to see more tiny camera stuff, click up here, and down here there will be a playlist with all of my film photography videos, including all of the other camera tests I've done, just collecting old film cameras from older family members of mine and putting them back to work, testing them, seeing if they even still work and what they look like. So if you're interested in more film photography and more film cameras, click down here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.